Tell me what time. Ah, hello, Will It Grow? Welcome to the live stream. Anybody else in here? Looks like there should be 3. I think Jan's got a bunch of people over there by her, so maybe that's what's going on. Oh, John, I'm sorry. Got to bring your friend up. There. Put him down there. So, John, how are things going out in the garden? I don't think he's here.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Looks like 4 people are here. Will somebody say hello?
John,
Will it
yeah.
grow? Well, I made a promise that I would shave my beard off, and I did. So there we go. So how's the garden going, John? All right. I'm going to take this mask off. So I've been out in the garden today, most of the day, and I planted beets. Well, not today. Yesterday I planted beets. It rained most of the day today, so I was down in the basement, and I planted some broccoli, and I planted some other things. But I can't remember right now what else I planted.
Cucumbers.
Oh, cucumbers. I planted national pickling cucumbers. Well, Homestead Aquarius, I was going to try and do like you did and not show my face at all, but I know people want to see my face. So, but I'm going to take this mask off. It's kind of ridiculous. So, anyway, I was saying we planted some national pickling cucumbers, and we planted broccoli, and then I planted straight 8 cucumbers. I didn't do that last year. Some years I do the straight 8 is a slicing cucumber. I like to do them. I like slicing cucumbers. We don't seem to sell too many of them, but I do enjoy the slicing cucumbers for myself. But I watched John planting beets the other day, and that motivated me. So I went out and I planted I've got my rows are 200 feet long. I planted a double row, and then I'm going to plant another double row probably in 3 weeks. And we'll see how that goes. But other than that, I'm watching the chat. It's really easy to watch the chat right now because there's not a lot of people there. So I'm going to take this mask off. This is Abby's Life on the Farm. How are you? Whew, that's a lot better now without the masks on. But we planted beets. We're going to plant more beets. I got yellow beets that are going to go in, or golden beets. I've got the Detroit Reds that we put in already. I'm all set up for kale. We've got all of the T-posts in for the peas and the beans. The peas will go in tomorrow, and we will be planting beans probably fairly soon after that. But I'm using where we had the trellises set up for the tomatoes last year, our plum tomatoes. So anyway, here it goes. Last one, I promise. And that is Chicken Johnny clean shaven. So
You still have hair on your head.
Mama Goose says I got hair on my head, but there's not much. Not much. It's a little different getting old. Things start falling off and things start getting thinner, like your hair and all of that. So the real reason I had to shave my beard is I have a wedding on Saturday, and so okay, Homestead Aquarius, I guess that's one way of saying it. So I've got a wedding that I've got to do on Saturday, and so I wanted to be clean shaven for that because I'll be, in front of people and all that. And but yesterday I'm riding in the car. My son was driving. We were going from job to job, and I bit down on something and I lost a tooth. So I got to go get that fixed, but I can't do that until next week. So I'm hoping they're going to wear masks at the wedding. If not, I got a problem. Homestead Aquarius, when I was a pastor full time, I used to tease the worst thing I ever had to do was a wedding, and the best thing I ever did was a funeral. And the reason being, when you do a funeral, you feel like you're helping bring people comfort, and you feel like you're participating in a time of their life, which is a difficult time, and you can help them through it. Hello, Gail. Hello, Freehandly Maid. And for me, I can't say that I enjoyed funerals, but of all of the things that I had to do, funerals gave me the greatest sense of purpose and kind of reward, especially if I knew the people well. If it was somebody from off the street, I still enjoyed being able to bring comfort and participate with them and so forth. But it was much better if it was somebody I knew from the church. But when I would do weddings, one of the things that I found out is that I actually ended up, I didn't necessarily bring people any kind of comfort. I was sort of there as a part of it, but I didn't really feel like I brought anything to it. And it's supposed to be the best day of their lives, and I have found that I would say 75-80% of the time everything goes fine, but the bride always seems to be very anxious and upset about something. But I've done weddings where the bride was 2 hours late and her mother was 3 hours late. But I've never had a wedding where the groom was late. So anyway, that's just kind of a side note. Yeah, Gail, I didn't say anything about it in the past. I in my 40 questions video, I might have said something along that line, but I really didn't say anything because I don't know, this was doesn't work into conversation on YouTube all that well. But yeah, I was 14 years, I was a Baptist pastor, and when we left that position, that's when we moved on to the farm. and I do still preach from time to time. That sermon that you listened to the other day, that was done in 2015. And I was over at Homestead Preacher's site channel, listening to him talk, and he kind of made the statement to encourage everyone to be more forthcoming with their faith. And so I thought, I've got these messages, and there's a few more. Because it's only audio, I'm reluctant to put it up. I put one up. It was well received. I'll probably do it again at some point. Got probably over 10,000 of them, but there's only 3 or 4 of them that are on the internet that I could actually grab up. All the rest of them are on cassettes. So our weather here is pretty good. We've had a very dry, mild spring. We've started to get some warm weather, but about an hour and a half ago, we had a wind come through that made me a little nervous. We get wind out here quite a bit, but because the farms, all of the fields around us are bare. They've all been tilled. Some of them have been planted. Our garden is about 3/4 of the way, well, halfway planted. Hello, Frugal Farmer Channel. Welcome to the live. But the cornfields around us are just bare dirt, and they've been tilled up. And so when that wind came through, even though we had a little bit of rain, it was, it was like the Oklahoma dust storms out here. You could see nothing but dirt coming by. And I'm sure that, it's up in the cars, it's up in the barns, it's everywhere. It blew the door open on my garage where I've got a tenant who keeps fertilizer up there. Where's Chicken Johnny, says Joe Serrano. I'm filling in for him. I'm his better looking brother. So it was a little scary there for a minute, but it went away as quick as it came. And we got maybe 5 minutes of rain.
Yeah.
We could really use some rain. I can't believe I'm saying that in April, soon to be May. Normally we're really wanting dry weather. So we've got a lot planted. I walked the field on today's Thursday, Wednesday, Tuesday. Walked the field on Tuesday, and we've got potatoes up. So I would say it's about the right time. I would say the potatoes will come up just about right. My onions are struggling because I have them on drip tape, but the roots I don't think are quite developed yet, and it's pretty dry. So we've been trying to get as much water on them as we can. Right now, I don't have a manifold on the drip tape. I usually don't run irrigation until mid-July, so I wasn't really prepared. So I've got to move the hose from drip line to drip line. It's not a big deal, but it'd be better if I had them all connected. So I've got some stuff coming from Amazon that I need to finish all of that. And maybe I'll do a video on it. Yeah, all the important people are here. We've got both team captains and myself. So Joe, yeah, they want to be a part of this. We got good things going on. We've got Will It Grow here with us. Will It Grow's chicken. And good times. Hey, I want to read something to you, and then we'll get started. I've got a few things on my mind, but I was hoping we could do a little bit more informal chatting this time. I usually get caught up, but I want to read to you 1 John chapter 3. and I'm just going to read a couple of verses. Behold, what manner of love the Father has bestowed upon us, that we should be called the sons of God. Therefore, the world knoweth us not, because it knew him not. Beloved, now we are the sons of God, and it doth not appear yet what we shall be. But we know that when he shall appear, we shall be like him, for we shall see him as he is. And every man that hath this hope in him purifieth himself, even as he is pure. All right. I said a few weeks ago that I think the you're talking about this jalapeno on a stick? So I said a few weeks ago that when Genesis says that we're made in the image of God, it isn't so much the physical image of God, it's the image of God as the creator. That's one of the aspects of who God is. And I think of him as the creator. And when I am out in the garden, I feel as though, I mean, this is the closest that I can get to being a creator of the garden, planting and planning and working to get things accomplished. And when the weeds come up and when the insects come, I recognize that, yes, like God, I too can create something, but God creates things that are much better than what I can create. And they're perfect, whereas the things that I create are flawed. Real Life Channel, welcome. Thank you for coming on. And I think I got everybody else. Freehandly Made, I think I said hi. Yeah, I said hi. So what are the things that we're doing during this time of year in the garden? Well, one of the things I'm doing is trying to get beds prepared for planting. I have peppers and tomatoes ready to be transplanted. I have some lettuce that should have been transplanted already. I have red cabbage, green cabbage, Chinese cabbage, broccoli, all that's ready to be planted. Then I have broccoli and cabbage, a second planting that's going to be 4 weeks behind. That'll be planted at the end of May. Hopefully the restaurants in Illinois will be open. Right now they're sort of open, and hopefully they'll be completely open and we'll be able to sell. I sell a lot of broccoli and cabbage here in town to a local restaurant, and hopefully we'll be able to get that market going this year. We didn't have that market last year, and we had planned for it. We planted for it, but we didn't end up getting it. So hopefully this year that'll be available to us. The other thing, we planted our potatoes about 6 weeks ago, and so 2 days ago I went through and I gave them their first round of fertilizer. Actually, it's only been about 4 weeks since we planted them. So I gave them their first round of fertilizer. I also put a pre-emergent down. We haven't gotten any weeds coming up yet in the rows, but between the rows I had some weeds. So I ran the tractor through and cultivated with that. And we've got things pretty well going. I'm hoping that the potatoes, we've got some warm weather and we've had a little bit of rain. So I'm going to get a little more water on the potatoes Saturday probably, or Sunday. And hopefully by Tuesday or Wednesday, we'll be able to hill the potatoes for the first time. I'm going to try to do a video on that. I've been doing a lot of the things. It's not that I forget to video it. It's that there's so many things to do, and running that camera is just one more thing, and sometimes I don't have enough hands to do it all. We had my son was doing some of the videoing when we were planting the onions. So I like when I have somebody to help me out on that. Well, I thought I'd take a second to talk about fertilizing potatoes. And the way I do it, my potatoes are planted in straight rows. And I mix trifluralin, which is a pre-emergent. It won't hurt the potatoes, but it will affect any broadleaf plants that are trying to come up. So I run the cultivator through between the rows, but then in the rows themselves, I like to get some trifluralin down, and you can buy it in the store under the name Preen, but I think it's about 30% more expensive with the name Preen than it is if you buy it as trifluralin. So I mix that in with some triple 14. Triple 14 is just nitrogen, potassium, or nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, and then some filler, and you mix that all up together. And I drop that down in the row right over the potatoes. I try to avoid, well, not at this point. At this point, they're up, but there's not much leafing yet. So at this point, I just sort of spread it down the row. I'll walk down and let it dribble out of my hand. Try to put about 1/4 to 1/2 cup per 10 feet of row. And we're planted probably about 12 inches apart in the row, and the rows are about 70 inches apart. And I plant them that far apart because when I run the tractor through to cultivate, if I only did 60 inches, my cultivator is 60 inches, so I'd be 30 inches into the other side of the row. And when I start hilling, those hills will actually come into that. So my cultivator would tear into that hill. So I plant them about 70 inches apart, so I know I can get through it. And I've got one that's a little bit close, maybe two that are a little bit close, but there's 8 rows. And then we've got, I don't recall, 4 rows of onion transplants and 1 row of onion sets, and then the beets. And I fertilize the onions the same way. At this time of year, you want to put down a balanced fertilizer. 14-14-14 is what I use. If you use 5-5-5, you just got to use twice as much of it, or almost twice as much. If you use 10-10-10, 2/3 as much. So you want to try to fertilize before a rain, within 48 hours of a rain. So if it doesn't rain, then you do need to hit it with overhead irrigation, or if you can rake it in, but I can't do that on the potatoes. Now on the onions, I've got a double row of onions, and I fertilize between the rows of onions, and try to not get them actually on the onions. John, I've only heard, I know that there are indeterminate onions. I know that there are determinate potatoes. I don't actually know the difference in what I have. As far as I know, they're indeterminate. Both potatoes and tomatoes are Solanarius family. So yeah, but I don't really know if I planted determinate or indeterminate. And I've only recently heard about indeterminate potato, or rather determinate potatoes. So who is it? Welcome to the live. Appreciate you coming in. So yeah, I really don't know. We grew this year. We grew an Effie potato, which is similar to the Yukon Gold, Yukon Gold has a disease tendency towards hollow heart, which there's nothing wrong with the potato, and you just cut it open and there'll be a little hollow center in there. And actually that was very common. And then breeders have gotten hollow heart out of, like the Idaho potatoes, you very rarely see any hollow heart. And your Kennebecs, you don't. Well, Kennebecs are a pretty small potato comparatively, so I don't think you have as much risk of that. Red potatoes, you can get some hollow heart. We plant red Pontiacs, and I used to plant Norlands, and I had problems not so much with hollow heart, but I had a problem with a deformity that it's almost like cat's eye in a tomato, or cat's face, I guess, in a tomato. So I stopped planting the Norlands. Now I've talked to people that don't ever have that problem. So a lot of it has to do with your ground and maybe even your watering techniques and things like that. But what's the other one that we planted purple something. It's the same purple variety that Haas Tools sells, but we bought it from the company that Haas Tools buys it from, because we've been buying from them for years and years. So I think all of those are indeterminate. Now you got me thinking, and I want to pause and look it up, but
I got it here.
but I think that they're an indeterminate breed. Oh, that's okay. I'm not gonna.
It's layers.
Oh, hang on. Okay. Yeah, so based on the definition that you just gave, which was that the indeterminate tomato grows in several layers and a determinate only grows in one layer, everything that I've ever grown has been an indeterminate. So that's why we have to hill it. Now I'm thinking back, and I think I watched a site from a guy up in Minnesota who talked about if you do indeterminates, or determinants, you don't have to hill them, and you'll still get as many potatoes. But well, it's not so much when it breaks, Joe. Joe is asking, cat's face in a tomato, is that when near the stem the tomato skin breaks? Tomatoes still good, but grocery stores don't want them on account of they're defective. Well, yeah, and the other problem is that when the skin breaks on those, there's potential for disease to get in there, and so that's why they don't want to catch them. I will catch that video, John. But what you're talking about, Joe, I think is when you get those cracks, and that's from not watering consistently, or when you really get that bad, the tomatoes splitting, is if you're not irrigating at all and you're just allowing the rain to irrigate. What will happen is it won't get enough water for a while, and then you'll get this, 2 inches of water. For us to get an inch of water in the garden, like on drip tape, it would take several hours before I'd get that much water on the garden. So when you get rain for a day, that's a lot of water. And if the plant doesn't sort of have a stop or go, it just starts putting those nutrients and that water up into the tomato. So that's where you get those splits and the big cracks. Cat's face is something, I don't think we see it that much unless you're planting the beefsteak tomatoes. And then what it is, the skin sort of curls in upon itself. And it looks, the skin is still consistent, but it's like it's got and when you go to cut it, it's hard to get, you can't peel them. So it's a good slicing tomato, but you wouldn't want to use it for a hamburger tomato. I think the best, tell me what you think. Will it grows a big tomato guy? I know that. I plant the Better Boy tomato. I plant early girls, Better Boys, and then I generally try to plant some kind of an heirloom, just to give me some beef, big beefsteaks, big beefsteaks. And then we do Romas. I'll do 150 Roma tomato plants, and those are indeterminate. So what that means is that you do minimal pruning on indeterminate tomatoes because they're going to grow so big, almost like a bush bean. A bush bean is going to grow so big, and then it's going to stop. It's going to put on a harvest. With bush beans, you might be able to harvest them twice, maybe a third harvest. What we do with bush beans is we will come through once they've put on fruit and you start to see a couple of them getting too big, then we'll go through and pull the whole plant out of the ground. That way we can sit in the shade and we can pick the beans off of the bush, and it's just a lot easier. And your second harvest is going to be very diminished from the first harvest, and your third harvest is going to be even worse. So I like the bush beans for that reason, but I started planting pole beans. My grandfather always grew pole beans, and my dad liked the bush beans. And Willet Gross says, my favorite is Early Girl, great producer. Yeah, and the fact that it says Early Girl, you'll get tomatoes from that all through the season. At least we do. Same thing with Better Boys. Better Boys are a little later to the party, but it can be, I don't know if that's an exaggeration, like about that, not quite softball size, tennis ball size, maybe a little bigger than that even. But I like the Better Girl. I like the taste of the Better Girl. Now, I hate the smell of all tomato plants. If I had a choice, I wouldn't grow a single tomato. We also, this year, we decided to try cherry tomatoes again. We do Sweet 100s. They put on a lot of fruit, and it's a determinant, but it seems to put on fruit for a long time. So I don't do any pruning on it. You seem to get 4 or 5 good harvests off of it easily. But with the indeterminate tomatoes, what I did last year and what I'll be doing again this year is I run a line down I run a cable across the top, and then I run a single line down, tie it to the bottom of the tomato, and then I start clipping the tomato on as it grows. And I'll usually have about 3, maybe 4 places where I clip it. Once I've got 4 clips on, I'll start spreading the clips out, just moving them as I go. So that apical meristem is growing up. And if you can get it to curve around the string, that gets it even better support. This year we'll be growing our tomatoes, our indeterminates, in the hoop house. And that'll help a lot because it'll keep them out of the wind. You'll be able to regulate the water a lot better. They do need to be pollinated, so we'll have to get some bees in there, and or we'll have to hand pollinate. I don't want to do that really, but so we'll see how that goes. But the hoop house, kind of an interesting story. So we set our hoop house up, was it 5 years ago, I think, and we got all the metal up. I had a bunch of people helping me. We got the thing up in about a day. Thought we had it in pretty good shape. I didn't have the front or back door on yet, and we put the plastic over the top of it, and then I just pulled the plastic together down in the back, and I put a front on it. And on the, I believe it was May 31st weekend, it was, or no, it would have been earlier than that because it was the weekend of milk days.
June. Yeah, June.
Was it that late? June? Maybe I got that confused. Anyway, we had a straight line wind come through and it lasted for probably 3 days. And my wife gave me a holler and said the barn doors were flying off their hinges, and we went back, and we've got barn doors that slide on rails, and they were standing out straight. And we were able to wrangle those down. In the process, I hurt myself a little bit, threw a bunch of tires in front of that, and then I thought, well, I better check on the hoop house. And I went back there and it had been completely destroyed. So I got a little disheartened by that, so I just left the hoop house, abandoned it. I took the plastic off of it, and we took some of the material to do something else with. And then this year I decided to set it back up. So we'll be doing a video. I put a video out last fall of us moving it, and I'm going to do a video. We've almost got it completely done. We're taking our time on it. Bought the plastic a week ago. So Vineyard Chicks, hello. It's good to have you here. Who else came in while I was, I guess that's it. Willick Gross says that cayenne pepper you sent me was great. I use it on most things. Did you mix salt in that? No, I did not. I put a little bit of arsenic in there, hoping that you'd eat a lot of it, and that Danny wouldn't eat any of it. But apparently, it didn't affect you. So,
No, it was just straight cayenne.
yeah, Homestead Aquarius. It sounds worse on the video. Well, no, it's really bad. We got the people who lived here before us had a big sign that was sitting in the barn, and it said the windiest place on earth. Had I seen that sign before I plunked down my nickels and dimes, I might have looked elsewhere. But yeah, we're in the Kishwaukee River Valley, which is a dried out river valley. And that's why my ground is so rich. You know, John, when you smell that cayenne pepper, it smells like tomatoes to me. Not tomato plants. It smells kind of like a tomato, and I like it. Sandy, it's too hot for her. She doesn't like anything spicy. She's got some stomach issues that we're going to take care of. But I like to put it in my eggs if I make scrambled eggs or if I make an omelet. But you got to use just a little bit of it. I took some of the peppers, you know, as you dry them, they didn't do so well. So I ground those up and I put them down under our porch. And we no longer have any varmints under there. They seem to have cleared out. Every once in a while we'll get a raccoon down there, and I don't see any signs that they've been in there since I put that down. So the Homestead Aquarius says he lives off of cayenne, at least for now. I don't know. I don't know how much of that I could take.
It makes my nose like burn.
Abby's Life on the Farm says, what's everyone's opinion on direct sowing squash? Let me tell you about my opinion. Oh, it'd be great in chili. Yeah. Yeah. So my opinion on direct sowing squash, I don't do it any other way. And last year I did acorn squash and spaghetti squash. Somehow my seeds got mixed up a little bit, and I thought that I was planting butternut, but I was planting spaghetti squash. Either that or I didn't have my glasses on, which could be as well. But the way that I planted acorn squash last year is I planted 2 rows, 75 feet long, 7 feet apart. And I planted them every 6 inches. And my plan was to thin them out. But you know how those plans go. And I never thinned them out, and I had no weed pressure on that plot to speak of. Now, I did cultivate when the plants were small and I could get the cultivator through. I cultivated the bare ground to keep it clear. And then when the squash developed, very quickly it developed a canopy. It was a little difficult to get in there and pick the squash because both rows overlapped one another. In fact, you couldn't tell where one row began and the other row ended. It just made a big canopy. And my spaghetti squash, I only got, I think, 3 spaghetti squash plants to take. Some of those seeds are getting a little bit on the older side. They're about 4-year-old seeds. And there'll be 5 this year, but I don't know if I'm going to plant them. I think I got new plant. I know I got new butternut. I don't remember on the spaghetti squash if I got new ones or not, but I would plant them nice and thick. And yeah, so all of your cucumbers, even cucumbers. Now I plant my cucumbers ahead of time because I plant them along a trellis, and it would be difficult for me to direct seed them. I couldn't get my machine through my planter, and so I do transplant my cucumbers, but I do it when they're very small. So I planted my cucumbers today in the cells. I put them in the germination chamber. I believe they'll come out of the germination chamber on Sunday. And then in a week and a half to 2 weeks, I will be planting them in the ground, I think. But any other cucurbits, watermelon, muskmelons, acorn squash, I'm planting turban squash this year. Don't really know much about it. My friend Jeff Turs gave me the turban squash. He had to buy a full pound of it from Johnny's, and so he said, "Don't buy any, take mine." So, then I'll be planting acorn, turban, butternut, and spaghetti squash. Years ago, we used to plant delicata, and I just find delicata to be very starchy. And Hubbard squash, I'd like to try it, but I don't think I can sell a huge squash. And as far as using it for us, I just hadn't thought about it. I mean, if I wanted to put some up. I also like to grow New England pie pumpkins. And this year, I don't have the name of it in front of me. We bought them from Haas Tools, but it is a pie squash. And they come, the New England pumpkins get to be about the size, 16-inch softball size, something like that, maybe just a tad larger and a little flatter. But off of, say, 50 plants, I can get maybe 300, 400 pumpkins. And I don't think I've ever planted 50 New England pies. I think that was still when I was running the 75-foot rows. So, but I just love to eat the New England pie pumpkins. I'll bake them in the oven, and they are tremendous.
Squash is good to do, cut in half and add spaghetti, homemade spaghetti sauce in it.
Yeah. Who's saying that? Is that
Me.
Oh, you? Oh, I thought Sandy was reading the post to me. We take the spaghetti squash, we cut them in half. Now, there's 2 ways you can cut spaghetti squash in half. It's like a football. You can cut it the long ways, and you'll get short noodles. You cut it the short way or across the long way, and then scoop that out with a fork, not a spoon. You scoop it out with a fork, and it'll make those noodles. And then, man, you put some tomato sauce on them. They're really good. They're really good.
Abby's Life on the Farm wants to know if anybody's tried banana peppers.
Oh yeah, we grow banana peppers every year. That is the, when you get a chance, go onto my channel, watch Sandy's video on how to cook banana peppers. She takes cream cheese and shred cheese, and she puts them on the pepper, puts them in the oven. There's more to it than that. You gotta watch the video, but they are banana peppers. It's hard to say this with will it grow in the room because I know I'm going to get an argument. Banana peppers are the only pepper I would grow if I could only grow one pepper. And I don't know why I grow bell peppers. We get tons of bell peppers, tons. And nobody wants to buy them because they're so cheap at Walmart. Now, they don't know the difference in the taste, and that gets frustrating. But yeah, I encourage you to go watch that video. So Old Alabama Gardener has a technique he used and a trick to eliminate vine borers. Direct sowing is a time-honored way. Yeah, that's Homestead Aquarius. I think I follow Old Alabama Gardener. The problem I've been having with YouTube is the problem that I'll get to that in a second, Joe. The problem I've been having with YouTube is I'm not getting notifications for a lot of people. So I'm pretty sure I used to watch the Old Alabama Gardener, and there's a Cajun gardener or something. He's been around for a long time. He uses a golf cart to plant. It's pretty interesting video. John says, I don't even bother with those anymore. I switched to the hot Cubanelle pepper. Yeah. So let's see. There was one I was looking at here that I wanted to respond to. So Joe Serrano says, Abby's Life on the Farm. Here in Mexico, I've heard some banana peppers are mild, others are hot. Haven't tried them. I prefer serranos, jalapenos, and whatever. You can read it for yourself. Chilies? I don't know. I'm such a terrible speller and reader. It's terrible. What some people call a banana pepper is a hot Hungarian banana pepper. You can get the hot Hungarians, or if you get what's just called a bell pepper or a banana pepper. The banana peppers that I've grown, all of them seem to be sweet. Now, what you have to watch for with peppers, and this may not be true in every case, but it seems to hold up. If you get a lot of rain and a lot of water, your jalapenos are going to be mild. They'll be large and they'll be mild. But if they get dry, they'll get some heat to them.
Yeah.
And last year we had a wet spring and a dry summer, a very dry summer. And that's why we went to all drip tape this year, because I think we suffered some losses in product because we didn't get water. I think we would have gotten better product. But our hot Hungarian peppers were inedible. And we couldn't do anything with them. But the jalapenos and banana peppers are very similar in terms of texture and all of that. And we can get jalapenos up here that are mild enough that I can eat them. But last year our jalapenos were hot.
I dropped you to your knees.
Hot. I mean, we had Mexicans that wouldn't eat them. They go, oh, these jalapenos look good. I said, try one before you buy one. And he's, oh, these are too hot. And that's when a guy told me, he said, listen, you got to get water on them because otherwise they're going to get too hot. Gail is saying, I hope my jumbo pumpkins do well. I grew regular pumpkins last year. So, are you growing like the big, like the 900 pound? My neighbor, he's about, if I went on a diagonal, if I go by the road, he's about 3 miles, 2.5 miles. But if I went by a diagonal, he's about a mile away. We call him the pumpkin guy because every year he sells pumpkins out of his field. He grows about, I think he grows about an acre of pumpkins, maybe 2 acres of pumpkins. But up at the corner, he always grows one of these giant pumpkins, and he's taken them into the city for the competitions. He grew a 1,200 pound pumpkin. He took second place, and the next year he grew a 1,400 pound pumpkin and took third place. So it's big competition. And that year, his pumpkin would have broken the national record, or not national, but the state record. But there were 2 that were bigger than his. And then one year he had one that he thought was probably right around 1,300 pounds. He was growing it, and he rubs olive oil on the skin so that it doesn't crack. I mean, these are huge, huge, huge pumpkins. And some kids came and just destroyed the pumpkin. So really, really unfortunate. You know, a guy puts a lot of work into that, and it's a sad thing. Recyclable Homestead, welcome to the live. Thank you for coming by. If you haven't hit that thumbs up, looks like a lot of people have been hitting it.
Welsh Farms is on.
Pardon?
Welsh Farms.
Yeah, you know, I fell behind in the chat here. I'm going to go ahead. Tony, Walsh Farms, good evening. Welcome to the live. Yeah, Gail, I thought he was pulling my leg when he told me that he rubbed him with olive oil, but I caught him doing it. So I don't know if it's something that is a wives' tale or something that really makes a difference. But Joe, you said you got a maternal grandfather didn't like hot peppers. I think some of us just don't have the stomach for it. I love sport peppers on a hot dog, and I used to do the things like Willett Grohl last year had his sister ate one of those ghost peppers, and I used to do that. I used to, my kids would challenge me, and I'd be, I don't know, fool enough to do it. But I can't now. I'll hurt for days. Abby's Life says, how many tomato plants do you recommend per person for the family? Well, it depends on a bunch of things. One is if you're planning on canning them and putting them up, I wouldn't really have an answer. If you're planning on keeping them, Carolina Reaper, that's what he hit. If you're planning on keeping them, I would do the Roma tomatoes, or some type of Roma tomato.
Add a meat to it.
You've got more meat and less juice. They sell a processor, and I'll probably do a video on that this year. Usually when tomatoes are being harvested, we're pretty busy, and that's why Sandy put up some tomatoes last year, but I'm going to try to make salsa this year. I've got some hot peppers, and I'm going to try to work with them. But if you're going to can them, I would do, you don't like to can Romas. Well, I don't know what to tell you then. You're an oddball. No. Well, another good one to can, any kind of a plum tomato. They've got a little bit of a different taste, but anybody else, San Marzanos are a very good canning tomato. I don't know what kind of harvest yield you're going to get off of them, but you know, I'm trying to think of how many we get off of a plant, and it's so hard to tell because we had some disease problem last year, but anybody want to weigh in on how many tomato plants per person in the family? You know, if you plant like homestead tomatoes, that's a determinant. You'll get, they'll put on 25, 30 good sized tomatoes per plant. I thought you made up, John, I thought you made up the Ernie's Nose name, but I that's an actual tomato variety. Ooh, Homestead Aquarius, dehydrated tomatoes for paste is good stuff. So you dehydrate the tomatoes and then blend them and just keep them as a paste.
They'd be dehydrated, so they'd be.
Yeah, yeah. So Abby's Life says, okay, we usually can ordinary tomatoes and mix them. Occasionally we add Cherokee tomatoes, you know, and that's fine. We do too. If I take off a bunch of Romas, I'll throw in some Better Boys and whatever we might have. Last year, the Homestead tomatoes, I think that's what Sandy made the spaghetti sauce out of mostly.
The one that had little spots on them we used.
Yeah, anything that we can't sell, we try to keep for ourselves. And one of the things you can do is blanch them, put them in a baggie, freeze them until you've got enough to make sauce out of, and then you can cook your sauce down. We've got a recipe for making ketchup, and we were going to try that this year, but it takes quite a while. You've got to really bring them down. Now, Will It Grow says, for my canning for me and my wife, I plant 30 plants. You know, I think that sounds like for two people, two adults, if you're serious about canning, I mean, that's some serious tomatoes. Country Homestead Preacher, welcome to the live. I was just talking about you a little bit ago. And it's all bad, so don't go back and listen to the early part of the live because you won't be happy. No, I'm just kidding. I was mentioning that you, in your message the other day, I think it was yesterday, maybe the day before, you had talked about being more vocal about our faith as Christians. And so you inspired me to put up a couple of, one sermon that I had preached in 2015. And it was audio only, so I was a little bit concerned about that. Simply Jan, welcome to the live. Thank you for coming by. Wow, it's 8 o'clock.
John wrote on there, I freeze mine. So does he like flash freeze them?
Well, John, when you say you freeze them, do you put them in bags and just layer them and freeze them? Or do you have one of those like flash freezers? John, the purpose of blanching, as I understand it, is to loosen the skin up so that you can get the skin off easier, but it will kill any bacteria, any living thing inside that tomato, or at least that's on the surface, because that's where listeria or anything would be. So before you freeze things, you generally want to blanch them. Same thing with beans. We blanch our beans before we freeze them because they'll keep better. They're not fresh when you thaw them out, but they're good.
In your chick spot rattlesnake beans.
Who is it? Who said it?
Vineyard chicks.
Oh, Vineyard Chicks is red. We're doing them this year. I did Blue Lake beans last year. I like them. That's the Blue Lake bean is kind of the gold standard, I think, for as far as beans go. But we're doing rattlesnake beans this year. They're they've got little spots on them. They're kind of neat. So we try to grow something a little bit different each year, so that when we go to market, people see something that they haven't seen before, and we can try to get them to, buy more, try things out. I think it also helps to expand people's, their knowledge of what's available. It always makes me, I just shake my head in wonder when people say, oh, I hate vegetables. Beets, for example. When I was a kid, one of my jobs was to go through the field and weed the beets out. Now, understand, my dad would grow about a 10-foot row of beets, maybe a double row, 10 feet. Well, probably 4 rows, 5 feet long is probably all he would grow. And I would sit there and I'd pick the weeds out. And of course, my dad was pretty fussy about how well I weeded the garden. And so I'd pick all those weeds out and keep the beets and the turnips and he liked to grow bib lettuce and leaf lettuce. And I'd go through and weed all that stuff. So I developed sort of a dislike for, beets. And then maybe 30 years ago, I started eating beets again, and we could eat beets all the time.
My mom gave us a really good recipe.
Yeah, we got a recipe from Mama Goose's mom, and that was a real treat. And I sometimes will do Harvard beets, but I'm diabetic, and Harvard beets uses a lot of sugar, so we haven't done that in a while. But I suppose if I were to grow a garden and I was only going to have 5 things in the garden, I would grow potatoes, onions, beets. Well, cabbage. I don't know if I'd choose broccoli. If I could only grow 5 things, it'd be onions, potatoes,
Carrots.
beets, cabbage, and carrots, and shallots, banana shallots. So that's 6.
And mine would all be peppers.
Sandy says she'd plant all peppers. We are growing a gypsy pepper this year. That's the pepper we're going to feature. We aren't going to do any of the hot Hungarians. We're going to do banana peppers. We're going to do the gypsy peppers. What's the other one that we do? The poblano.
Oh, we're doing.
Last year our poblanos got really hot.
Yeah.
But
we're doing the sweet.
We're going to do cayenne peppers from our seed. And then I've got a bunch of different ones, and I apologize. I've got the Will It Grow pepper. We've got that one that we're going to grow. And John just mentioned one a second ago. I can't think of what it was. I'm going to look back up here. Well, I can't find it. That's all right. Lazy Acres Homestead. Welcome to the live. I didn't see you come in. I saw your icon there, and I thought, oh, that's. Then I thought, oh. So.
Yes, we have rhubarb.
Ernie's nose is the tomato that John grows, but there's a. Yeah, John says, "Wow, you're going to grow lots of small peppers." No, no,
Bring it on.
ours are pretty big.
Mm.
What are the peppers, John, that Jules was growing last year? Cubanelles, and I know you grow them too. Is Cubanelle a hot pepper? Is it a spicy pepper? Because you sent me Cubanelles, so I'm going to plant them. I mean, they're already planted.
Tell Joe how I make the poblanos.
The Hungarian wax pepper is good pepper. Sandy will take, Joe asks,
The poblanos.
how do you make your poblanos with cheese, bean, or meat filling coated with flour and dipped in egg batter?
No, not yet. That sounds great.
We shall be doing that. What she does is she puts a little olive, cuts them in half, pulls the seeds out, puts them in the oven on parchment paper with some olive oil in them, just wiped on them. She'll brown them a little bit. Then she puts, is it sour cream?
Cream cheese.
Cream cheese.
Shredded cheese.
And shredded cheese.
Mixed together.
And puts them back in the oven, gets them a little toasty. And I will tell you, I can sit here and eat them for hours on end. But I need a recipe for the battered poblanos. So
Yeah.
Joe, I know you don't make videos, but now you're on the hook. You got to do it. It's rules. I don't make the rules. John and Robert make the rules, and that's the rules. You tell me about a pepper recipe, you got to make a video.
Abby's Life said our favorite recipe for rhubarb, strawberry rhubarb.
Oh, I am a strawberry rhubarb pie fanatic. So I don't have a recipe for it. I have a wife who does. And pretty soon here we'll be harvesting rhubarb, and we'll be freezing that up in little packets. We'll do some of it with, my mother used to do a rhubarb and she'd make a sauce with sugar and some other things, and we'd put that on ice cream. But I prefer the strawberries put in with it because the strawberries sweeten that up, and you don't need the sugar as much. I guess you put sugar in it, but the Portugal pepper, yeah, well, that's what I was calling the Will It Grow pepper. I think you gave me enough seeds to do a whole flat, and I think I've done the entire flat. It's hard to keep track of some of it. All right, Abby, it was great having you here. We're going to close up too. I realized a minute ago how late it was, but as I say goodnight to all of you, about an hour before we went live, I got a phone call from my sister that they were taking my mother to the emergency room. She's 93 years old. I don't know yet why they took her to the emergency room. I don't think it's something imminent. It didn't sound like it was something, but she's in a rest home, and they took her to the emergency room. So if you might just offer a prayer up for her. Her name is Eleanor, and I would covet your prayers. So the rest of y'all, I appreciate you being here. Thank you all for coming. I hope that I've added something to your lives. I know you've added to mine. Emetzer Shem. We'll see you again. I'm Chicken Johnny. Eat your vegetables. Take care of you. Thanks, Homestead. Thanks, Will It Grow. All of you. Thank you very much. You guys all have a great night.
Bye, guys.
We'll see you in a week, or we'll see you on the video coming up soon.